This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at the BatmanUniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Tim G 311. This is episode 214. And speaking of 311, Dane, happy belated 311 day.
Yeah, happy belated 311 day. I know it was a big day for you. You probably wore your 311 shirt, your 311 pants, your 311 underwear, your 311 face mask.
Well, I have two of those that you mentioned.
No 311 underwear?
Sadly, no.
311 socks. 311 socks, Dan.
I don't have 311 socks. I probably should get those. Right now, it's just a bunch of 311 shirts and a 311 face mask.
Oh, nice. So what did you do to celebrate your annual 311 day celebrations?
Well, throughout the day, I couldn't do much because of being at work. But obviously, the drive up and the drive home, listening to the 311 music. And then to celebrate 311 Day, they've been doing these live streams. I think we talked about that before. But for this one, they were playing my favorite album of theirs, I think their quintessential album, their fourth Transistor, which is 21 tracks of just awesome, diverse music that you're ever going to hear. And they played it all the way through in a live stream that day, and it was amazing. It wasn't the first time they'd done that. They did it 10 years ago at one of their own festivals where they played that whole album all the way through. But like I said, been 10 years, so it was nice to hear it again and seeing it in better quality than how that last festival was filmed. Wasn't even in HD back in 2011 when they did that, even though it should have been at that time period, but it wasn't released that way. But seeing a cool HD performance of that amazing album, and they were really great. They're like on another energy level when they played that record on 311 Day. It was just a really, really great show. And I, since then, just been listening to that album kind of nonstop the last 2 days since that 311 Day. So yeah, it was fun. Couldn't do the normal celebratory shows that they do. Every other year on 311 Day, they do one massive show where they play 2 or 3 nights and massive set list. Or another year they would do their cruise shows, but due to COVID, they couldn't have any of that this year. But it was still cool to get a new performance via the live stream. So yeah, it was a fun way to celebrate 311 Day by them performing my favorite album of theirs.
Did you watch it live?
Of course.
Oh. Yeah, I couldn't watch the Jimmy Eat World Clarity live stream because it was a little too early for me because they're in Arizona. So good, you get to see it live. I still can't wait until this pandemic is over so that Tim, you can go on the 311 cruise.
That's like the one big 311 event I haven't done yet. I have not been on their cruise.
Yeah, and you can report on that and see what goes on the 311 cruise. So they rent out an entire cruise ship.
Yep.
For this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just 311 fans.
Just 311 fans. Yep. They have other acts that perform throughout the course of the cruise as well, but
right
in different shows and events. They have a game that I would love to participate in, where it's the Name That Tune, where the singer and guitar player Nick Hexum's on stage and there's like 5 contestants. He plays a little bit of a riff of a song for like 5 seconds or something like that, and you have to try to guess what it is based on that. I've seen YouTube videos of that, and every time I hear it, it's like, oh, I know I can get that right away. And you see some of the fans on there not sure what it is. It's like, I'd like to think I'd be able to do that, but under pressure, sitting on the stage, knows how you would react, being nervous or whatever, not recalling what you obviously should recall in that moment. But that's a game I would love to try to see if I could prove my 311 knowledge in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in front of all those people, your mind just goes immediately blank. And
yeah, like you don't want to look like a poser 311 fan and not recognize it.
How would you be a poser 311 fan if you bought tickets for the 311 cruise?
Maybe someone got an extra ticket, someone bailed out, they asked someone else to join them who's not necessarily a fan, and for whatever reason got picked to go on stage. I don't know.
That's that's kind of my ultimate nightmare. Like, I remember going to like magic shows when I was a kid and stuff, and like it's they do that thing where it's like, oh, let's pick a member from the audience, to go up on stage and help us do the magic trick. Like that was always my biggest fear.
Until you later realize that all those people they pick are just planted anyway.
It's like, oh, it would have never been me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, please don't pick me. Please don't pick me.
And spotlight shine right on you. So yeah, another 311 day in the books. Hopefully next year will be one where it is a show. And I'd like to go to another 311 day show, because the last one I went to was 9 years ago, back in 2012. And I'd like to go to another one.
Yeah.
So hopefully that works out next year when things are officially fully opened up and we don't have to worry about the pandemic anymore. Hopefully by March 11th, 2022, that would be the case. But we'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, what can help pass the time to that is doing our commentary or I should say minute-by-minute commentary of the Fellowship of the Ring. Because we'll still be doing this commentary on March 11th, 2022, without question.
For the next 15 years, Tim.
It would just be a matter of question if we'll be through the prologue by that time.
That's true.
Which is what we're still at right now. So, as always, if you want to get your VHS copy, your Betamax copy, your Laserdisc copy, your DVD copy, your HD DVD copy, your Blockbuster membership card to go rent the VHS copy, your Netflix physical media disc of the DVD version, your DVD or DVHS, I should say, version, and as always, the greatest, your VHS to converted DVD copy that you did on old PC or Mac that you had lying around somewhere. So if you have all those ready to go, we're going to go from minute 2 to 3, and we'll see how far we get in the prologue, because I know we're not going to finish it. But Dane, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, play. You see the fire of the ring being forged. Another great shot of Sauron. I know I said this last time, but man, I love his design.
How did he fit that ring on his armor, finger armors?
See, I'd like to think he flipped the ring and he just caught it lifted his hand out and it's lit on his finger just perfectly. Or maybe it just he uses magic to have it just appear on his finger. And I would love if this was like a full-blown battle scene, but it still works as a great prologue and tease for what we're going to get, not only in this movie, but in the next two.
Have we ever seen anything like this before this, in the sense of like scale?
I know I personally haven't. Nope.
Yeah.
So I just remember seeing this for the first time. I was going like, wow, this is incredible. We're only 3 minutes into the movie. and
that's how far we get.
Yep. See, it's like we haven't even scratched the surface of this prologue yet.
Yeah, I know. It's she's still telling the beginnings of the beginning of the prologue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because because we still got to make it to that battle to where Isildur cuts off the ring from Sauron's hand, does not throw it into Mount Doom. Then we get into him being killed and all stuff with Gollum. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I think what's his name? Hugo Weaving.
Elrond.
Elrond. Secret villain of this movie. These three movies.
Because
I brought it up. Yeah, I brought it up before. Even if it was me and Tim, and I was Elrond. Tim, I'm sorry, I'm pushing you in.
I thought we were friends, Dane. Jeez.
and then I go back to all the guys, and I'm like, hey, Tim tripped over his Middle Earth shoelaces and fell in, or he got pushed by a goblin, and the goblin also fell in, and that's the end of it. I'm sorry, it's sad. I was crying up there. I was crying when I was coming back. I'm fine now, but
well, it is a long way down from the top of Mount Doom.
Yeah. I mean, secret villain, Tim.
Well, now I know where our friendship stands, Dane. You choose the world over me. I'm crushed.
I would expect you to do the exact same thing for the roles reversed.
Well, hopefully that we never get to that point where we're recording a podcast on the top of a volcano with the fate of the world in our hands.
I don't think that's going to happen to him, but you never know.
It makes for a pretty epic episode.
Yeah.
Well, now we have a goal to shoot for this podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we might as well go ahead and get into the feature topic for this episode, which is going to be a review of the first and probably only season of the first Marvel TV show on Disney Plus, WandaVision, which just had its series. I'm going to call it a series finale because that was the name of the last episode. And everyone involved is kind of talking about how this is intended just to be kind of a one and done show. So it's pretty much a series finale that we got last week. And now I can fully give my thoughts on the show because I know I mentioned it a few episodes ago after seeing the first few episodes and how I'm curious to see how it's all going to play out by the time it's over. And now that it is, I can go ahead and give my thoughts on it. Before I do, and throw a spoiler warning out there, I don't think I've talked to you too much about it, Dane, but were you curious to check out the show at all?
Yeah, I was. Because of your... I think you had mentioned it or something. Mm-hmm. And other people recommended I watch it. And so I did. I just could not get into it. You see, like here's the thing. Like, you watched all of the Marvel movies. You know them. You understand them. Me, not so much. Mm-hmm. It's yeah, and that's one of my main criticisms of the Marvel movies is that I don't really remember them that much. I can't tell you what happened in the first Avengers movie. I think Loki was like the bad guy in that one.
Yes, so you remember something.
Second one, not really sure what happened in that one. Civil War, I remember because there was a big Ant-Man in that one.
Yes.
And Spider-Man was in that one, and they fought at the airport, I think it was.
Yep.
I think the third Avengers movie, or the second Avengers movie, was the one that they were fighting in like Russia or something.
Sokovia.
Sokovia?
Yeah.
Okay, so Marvel Russia. Yeah, so like I did. They're just not memorable movies for me. Like I know I've seen them. It's just like I cannot remember a single thing from them. Still, I don't know what happened in the first Thor movie or the second one. Beyond Black Panther, I can't really remember anything from these movies because they're so like, I guess they're just done in a certain way where it's just like they just don't stick with me. But apparently a lot of people do. A lot of people enjoy it. It's just I kind of didn't know what they were referring to in this movie, this TV show. Like, so they're trapped in like a TV show or something, or like, and the TV show moves through time, different references, different eras of television or something.
Yeah. So my next question for you is, how far did you get into it? Like, how many episodes did you see?
I believe the third episode. So the episode where they're in the 70s, I think.
Yeah, that is the third one.
Yeah, and I think I forget her name. Elizabeth Olsen.
Wanda.
It's just right.
It's not like it's in the title or anything.
yeah. Sorry. She's like pregnant or something. Yeah, and she has the baby. It didn't really make sense to me. I couldn't really understand. I think it has something to do with I almost called him Snapathos.
Snap. I actually like that.
Thanatos' snap.
It's just Thanos.
Thanos. Sorry, Thanos. His snap, and like they got transported to like this weird space thing, and yeah, like the story doesn't really make sense to me. I just could not get into it with the laugh track and like not being fully aware, especially like that first episode, which was the black and white episode, which is supposed to be like 50s television, and they're listening to the radio, and there's like some weird stuff, and at the end, Wanda finds the helicopter that's red. Yeah, I didn't know what that was in reference to. I guess it was in reference to like what's going on in the real world.
You're close, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but like I just don't know how they got there. I just couldn't get into it.
I can understand that, but I will say if you just watch one more episode, the fourth one, a lot of questions would have been answered for you.
Because sure. Because like I don't know, like I just couldn't. I couldn't get into. I kind of didn't know what was going on. Like they're talking about like, oh, you know, they're trapped in the space-time continuum, and they're going through time, and this is all a mirage, and their neighbors. So who are the neighbors? It seems like they have a bigger role to play than just being like.
Yeah, one of them definitely does.
Okay, the woman.
The nosy neighbor, Agnes.
Yeah, the nosy neighbor. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I just couldn't make sense of it. I was totally confused.
And I could kind of understand that, because I even said this when I was talking about the first two episodes, how I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, those first two episodes, but at the same time, that's, I think, part of the genius of the show, because they just really went full blown into the sitcoms that they were trying to parody of those eras from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they did a great job of that as far as putting in two characters in Wanda and Vision into these sitcom type premises and the look and feel of it. They just, some that was so ridiculous, and it worked because it was ridiculous seeing them in those situations of an old 50s, 60s, 70s, and they go all the way up to like the 2000s as far as parodying the different shows of those decades. And you just kind of have to buy into what they're going for, I think, to enjoy it if you're not too familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and these characters immediately. And if you're not, I can understand how those first few episodes might not do it for you. And it can be a little confusing and not quite sure what's the point of the show is. But so I get it. But they're definitely all the questions you have get answered and get resolved if you go along. For even someone who's not too familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you watch the whole series, it'll end up making sense to you.
Yeah, just one more thing before you get into your hours-long review of it, which I'm sure you will. I think I was a bit overhyped on it because, like, I was reading on Twitter, like, all of these comic book websites and stuff. Like, this is the one that changes the game forever. And, you know, this is the great episode of WandaVision, you know, stuff like that. I guess it's something. It's just one of those shows where you need to know what's going on more than anything. You need to watch all 20,000 of the,
Well, I wouldn't say you need to watch all of them.
Marvel movies.
Just the ones with WandaVision.
Yeah, to kind of understand, what's going on, So, yeah, I was kind of lost in that respect. But I thought Elizabeth Olsen and what's his name, like Ray or something?
Oh, Paul Bettany, his character, Vision.
Yeah, Vision. Yeah, sorry, Vision. It's again right in the title. Yeah, they did a really good job, or at least their acting was really good. But yeah, I think it's not so inclusive as it should have been.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I'll just say one of the things I loved about it was the performances by Elizabeth Olsen in particular, but Paul Bettany was great as Vision, and then Catherine Hahn, who played the nosy neighbor Agnes. And again, I thought the spoiler warning or mentioned a spoiler right at the beginning, but I was going to throw it out there right now that I'll be going into the stuff that happens throughout the course of the series, because Catherine Hahn's character Agnes, the nosy neighbor, ends up being the main villain of the show. She plays the witch Agatha, and that gets revealed in the penultimate, or I should say the end of the third episode, but then in the last two episodes is where she's really on full-on villain mode. But Elizabeth Olsen, man, she just, I think, knocked it out of the park every episode, just for the different ranges she had to do in each episode, perfectly portraying a character from those different eras of sitcoms. But then when you get into the real world stuff in the Marvel Universe, just the emotion she had to display in certain scenes, especially in the penultimate episode, which was probably the best episode of the series, where Agatha takes her kind of a magical trip down memory lane, having her relive some of her most traumatic moments throughout her life. And there were just great performances all around. But Elizabeth Olsen just portraying these different arrays of her, just really showing her acting chops, really, as far as the different emotions and different characteristics she can do with this character and these different circumstances. It was just really great throughout the course of the series. And she just owns that character of Scarlet Witch now. I mean, it's to a point where you can't see anyone else playing that character. She just did such an amazing job in this series. But yeah, what I really liked about the series, again, you kind of have to buy into the premise of it being a sitcom in these different eras, but just how it really tied into the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and just how it just added layers and depth to these characters in Wanda and Vision, who weren't necessarily main characters in any of the movies they have been already, showing up in mainly just the Avengers movies and then in Captain America Civil War, and not being the focal points of those stories, but having memorable moments throughout. And then seeing them fully be the focus and have their story told in this series, it just, I think, elevated their characters even more so, and would even get more enjoyment out of an appreciation of their characters when you see them in the previous movies that they've been in already. So it just did a great job of just fleshing out those two characters and just having them really be just important parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. And the series did a great job of showing that. And also just how it was a nice balance, I felt, of doing the whole sitcom bit, but then showing what's going on in the outside world. Because if you were wondering what the whole point or the whole reason why they were in that sitcom reality, if it was a time loop or whatnot, it was basically, Dane, all just Wanda's doing. Her powers just going to another level where she pretty much took control and almost really held hostage a whole town and these people against their wills, and making them play these characters in a TV show that she's creating here. And
okay, but why?
Because that's another cool thing about later on in the penultimate episode, where we see Wanda's memories of where she grew up in that country of Sokovia. It was pretty much a war-torn country. She lived in a place where there was a battle going right out her window. So she had a pretty rough childhood. And pretty much the only place where she found like comfort and escape is through old sitcoms. And there was a moment where her dad he would try to like sell like DVD copies of them, and he'd have his children pick out what they want to watch on a particular night, and she would go to like the Dick Van Dyke Show was her favorite. And over the course of that episode, where we see her in the different points of her life, just kind of how when there was tragedy or rough periods in her life, she would always have these sitcoms that she'd go to and watch as kind of her comfort zone. And that is why when she went to this town, she just lost Vision in Infinity War. He's dead. Obviously, she lost her brother Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. And she was just kind of almost at a breaking point. And it got revealed that Vision kind of bought a house for them to live in this town called Westview, where this whole sitcom reality is taking place. So Wanda goes there. She actually finds a note that Vision left her. She goes there, and when she realizes this is where they're going to spend their lives if he didn't die, she just loses it. She can't contain her emotion, and her powers just kind of go out of control without her really knowing it, and just creating this whole world based on what she finds comfort in, these old sitcoms. And that's why she's kind of having her perfect life being created through what she loves most or found comfort in most when she was growing up, and which was these sitcoms. And another thing that I just really liked what it did, didn't make it so simple as far as her reasoning for doing this, where, it wasn't in her control. She did this unwillingly, which is true, but she could have stopped it and released these people at any time. But she chose to have this world to keep going and keep these people in this town against their will and play these characters. So it's kind of something where it was a complex version of this character where she wasn't the villain, but yet she did things that, a hero wouldn't necessarily do. And it just really dived into those issues of how someone would deal with grief, obviously with these fantastical powers, but just how she dealt with that and how she did things that were morally wrong, keeping people against their will and mind controlling them just to fulfill a purpose, to have her be in this perfect world. So just different elements and themes like that I felt worked really well. And then as the episodes went on, because obviously that wasn't revealed in the first half of the episodes, but they just kept planting the seeds and laying the foundation down for what the reasoning behind this was going to be. And I thought once we got to that moment in the penultimate episode where they fully revealed how this is possible, why Wanda is doing it, it was just a really great payoff and just made sense to why her character would do that and create this fantasy world where it is based on TV sitcoms.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So Wanda had a nervous breakdown, right?
Pretty much,
so
yeah.
She lost her brother and Vision. So Vision is dead in the Marvel thing?
Yes.
Okay. So who are all of the other people in the like who's the neighbor? Is the neighbor like a big character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
No, she was first introduced in this series, but she's a big character in connection with Wanda in the comics. She's was Wanda's mentor for a period to kind of control her powers. So, but they kind of switched it up a little bit for her interpretation in this series where she was the villain. So she's a witch who sensed Wanda's powers and wanted to pretty much brought herself to that. It's called the Hex is what they refer to, the Hex, as far as this area that she's controlling. So she goes in there and kind of just to keep tabs on Wanda and learn how she has this power because she wants it for herself.
Okay. So, welcome to another edition of Tim Explains to Dane. Okay, so Wanda, she grew up in a war-torn country, and just as a coping mechanism, really, she watched American television from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, just, to get her head out of the situation.
Exactly,
and she experienced a great trauma after her brother died and Vision died.
Even before that, because we see in that flashback sequence where she's a kid with her family watching the Dick Van Dyke Show. And they mentioned this in Age of Ultron where she was introduced, but they actually show it here where a bomb gets dropped on their apartment and her parents die in that blast. And it ends up being a bomb built by the by Stark Industries. So that's
okay.
So that was her first big traumatic experience. And we found out that her and her brother survived that because the bomb wasn't going off. And we learned that it was her powers kind of not necessarily, it was like manifesting for the first time where she was able to keep it from going off and killing her and her brother, but she did lose her parents in the initial blast. So that was her first big traumatic moment in her life.
I see. And so like now it's the current day in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but then she's sort of in like a fugue state or a coma or something, and she
not necessarily in a coma or anything. No.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so she's like aware?
Yeah, she's fully aware of everything that's going on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then this is her trying to create her own world where she can control it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and just pretty much be happy, live her perfect life. Yeah.
Okay, so you gotta start it with that. I mean, I know it's like a big reveal at the end.
Yeah, because they want to kind of keep that mystery going throughout the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, sure. But for the layman like me, it's like I just cannot get into that. Like, what's the point of this? Like, as I was watching the first episode, I was like, okay, where is this going exactly? Like, this is a little too
like too on the nose as far as
not too on the nose, more like too drip fed. It's like, okay, so we're gonna put this little piece in here that's gonna connect this piece with the next piece and the next piece and the next piece, and at the end we are going to have the big reveal in a big dramatic fashion, and for the most part it's going to be all of this other noise where it's like, okay, so this is the 50s, this is the housewife, and this is the accountant that goes to work, and here's a laugh track, and oh no, we're having the boss over, and so blah blah blah. It's I wish it was a little less of that, and more. This is a world she created. This is what happened to her. I wish it was a little more focused on that instead of keeping it to the end, far at the end where, an idiot, let's be honest, like myself, can sort of stick with it, instead of just drip feeding it and, like, okay, so here's a little piece and we're going to connect it with this little piece and then this little piece. And then, before you know it, we're going to have a big quilt, but you're going to have to wait 10 episodes or whatever it was. That's kind of the reason why it didn't really hold my attention. I kind of didn't know where it was going with all of this different generations of television thing,
Yes, it's almost like you should probably watch the 8th episode first and then start it over again.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe watch that one, get a full explanation, and then go back, and then, okay, so this is that thing, and that's this thing, and this is that person.
Because even I did that when I saw the 8th episode for the first time or explained everything. I went back and watched the first 2, and it played a lot better, because even me, when I watched it for the first time, I was like, yeah, I'm enjoying it because I know what they're going for here, and I know there's going to be a reason and explanation behind it all, so I stuck with it. But I can definitely understand where someone like you, Dane, it wasn't going to be for everyone right away. But once you see it in the grand scheme of things and you know everything that's going on, it does play out, like, you understand it obviously a lot better and things make more sense, and it does make it more enjoyable once you know the reasoning why those episodes are the way they are, because they're pretty much just straight up sitcom episodes. There's like maybe a scene or a moment or two where you get a sense, okay, something's not right here. And they're, like I said, planting the seeds for something that is what would be revealed later. But for the most part, those first 2 episodes are just straight on going that full-blown sitcom style 50s and 60s television. And I can definitely understand how someone like you wouldn't necessarily get into it because of the way they decided to play those episodes out.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I wish they gave you a hint in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like they started off at the end, but then they flash back to, this sort of stuff, the 50s and the 60s and the 70s television. But at least that, or at least they gave you sort of something to jump off from.
Yeah.
Instead of, just going straight into the television stuff, which is, it's a little grinding to get through, to be honest. It's like, okay, but what does this actually mean? I mean, I know, I mean, I guess like the big thing about like that first episode is like, oh, the big boss is coming over for dinner, and Wanda's like, oh, I don't have anything ready, and yada yada yada, and I just wish that there was a little something more in that, instead of just finding a helicopter in the driveway, toy helicopter.
Yeah. Well, I would say you definitely probably would enjoy the last half of the episodes more than the first half.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like they sort of connect everything really well.
Yeah, they really did.
What you've told me, yeah. Mm-hmm. And not only with the show itself, but the entire Marvel Colossus.
Yeah, that's a good word to use it. Colossus. Yeah, because it does change the characters moving forward. Because that was the other reveal once we get to the finale, that the Vision throughout the series, he's not real. Wanda just created him out of nothing, and it's just showing just how powerful she could be. And then she even creates 2 children out of nothing, where they're her kids. Yeah, and they can age up really quick. Because that was the other things about the course of the 3rd and 4th episode, where she's pregnant. She's pretty much goes through the 9-month pregnancy within 1 day. She gives birth like about that very day to these twins, and they age quick too. And it just goes into this whole thing where she has her perfect family, but yet since they're not real, obviously to her they are, but if they leave the hex, like they go out to the real world, they'll cease to exist. Like Vision won't exist, her children won't exist. There's a moment where she tries in the finale where she's trying to release the people and break the hex, but then we see Vision kind of disappearing, her kids in pain disappearing, and she stops it for a bit. So it just shows the level of her power that's on display here, which goes into her power level I always knew about from Scarlet Witch in the comics, and just this how she truly is one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe. Just if I could just get out of the way one little fanboy nitpick in here. Now that Disney owns Fox and has the rights to the X-Men, I was kind of hoping that they do the reveal and make it official that her powers is because she's a mutant. I was hoping that would be the reveal here, but we didn't get that. But we know mutants and the X-Men are coming in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point. But I was hoping they'd kind of drop the first bomb here where they'd make that reveal that Wanda's powers are there because she's a mutant. That could still be the case, but right now they're just playing into where she's pretty much like not necessarily a chosen one, but this being who was kind of prophesized, or like the witch Agatha knew about, and who have these powers, and someone who they're not learned, they're not given, she's just born with them, and they were only enhanced by the Infinity Stone, which got revealed here. But that kind of sounds like a mutant ability to me too, where you're just born with it. So maybe eventually that will be the case, because I just love that aspect of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver being the children of Magneto, and we'll see if that eventually happens. I would lose my mind if that does finally happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But speaking of Quicksilver, that was the other big thing in the series that it did, where in the 4th episode, they had it where it ended on a cliffhanger, where because her brother Quicksilver, or Pietro, got mentioned here and throughout the first few episodes. So you kind of got the feeling that he was going to show up some way in this series. And once there was at the end of episode 4, she gets a knock on the door. We see the back of a character who has silver hair, and he's like, okay, there's Quicksilver. And Quicksilver in Age of Ultron was played by Evan Peters. So it's going to be him. But nope, it was the actor who played Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men episode or movies. I messed up. Evan Peters played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. Aaron Taylor Johnson played Quicksilver in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Age of Ultron, who got killed in that movie. So once it got revealed that it was the Fox X-Men version of Quicksilver, my mind was blown thinking, wow, they're doing the whole cross multiverse thing here. Are we going in that route in this series? That would be kind of cool and kind of crazy and some trippy stuff I would expect in a series about Wanda, knowing about her powers and everything. So that was a cool reveal, but it also led to one of my biggest disappointments of the series, where it really didn't amount to anything. He ended up not being the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies, even though it was played by the same actor. It was just some random guy who lived in that town who was being controlled by the witch Agatha to kind of mess with Wanda and her mind, and just to have him portray her brother there. And that was a little disappointing. And there's ended up being nothing where it got, it kind of could be on my fault and other fans' fault for having these high expectations or your mind going crazy with speculation. But at the same time, it's hard not to when you use the same actor who played that character in a different universe. You expect there to be some kind of cool connection to that, but it ended up being nothing really, which is a little disappointing. Except we did get a nice little 311 Easter egg in one of his final scenes in the finale, where he's playing his guitar and he does a little bit of the opening riff to Amber, which was a nice little nod. Because there's a character, they introduced the character Monica Rambeau who gains powers throughout the course of the series, and she kind of has this energy glow when her powers are on display, and the color is an amber color. And if you're familiar at all with the 311 song, part of the lyrics is amber is the color of her energy. So when Pietro was talking to her, just kind of setting up what her powers are going to be. He just didn't say anything. He just played the little riff of amber, and if you know the lyrics, you know it's a little bit of foreshadowing, which was pretty cool if you're obviously a diehard 311 fan like me.
So they're referencing 311 in this.
Yes, they are.
Oh my God, Tim.
So that immediately makes me love it. So
yeah, I was about to say, this is the show that was made for you, Tim. Got comic books, and it's got 311.
Doesn't get much better than that. Throw a little Star Wars in there, and then you're perfect. But yeah.
Okay, so wait. Just so I sort of understand this, it's essentially the main plot of the story is essentially a witch fight.
Yeah, it eventually comes down to that. Yes.
Okay. No. I was just wondering, so who's the big baddie? Is it the neighbor? The neighbor is the big bad person, right?
Mm, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering.
And the finale was really good as far as kind of having that final battle action sequence like a Marvel movie had. The show had that as well. It was really cool. And not only just seeing Scarlet Witch use her powers, but fully become the Scarlet Witch in this series. Because obviously we've seen her in the movie. She had her powers on display there. A little bit of mind control and just her energy beams, being able to fly and control things with her mind. But now they were on full display here and just kind of fully embracing her full potential of her power, and finally being called the Scarlet Witch too, because she hasn't been called that in any of the movies. And getting her comic costume as well, with the crown, everything, the dress. It was cool that in the 4th or 5th episode where they're like, it was Halloween, they were doing trick or treating, and she was wearing the comic accurate costume, which had that cheap store bought costume feel, but it obviously looked like how the comics did. But the final one she gets in the finale episode is that updated type movie style version of the comic costume, and it looked really cool too. So it was great to finally get that and just finally see a full-blown Scarlet Witch formed in this series. And then just moving forward, what her role is going to be in the Marvel Universe going forward should be interesting, because she is definitely showing up in the next Doctor Strange. And as far as Vision goes, that was cool too, because we got the debut of the White Vision, the one who when I first heard of the character Vision, I first saw him where he was just this kind of pale white android with a cape. And I didn't find out till later that wasn't how he first looked. Kind of like how Wolverine, when I first was introduced to the character, he had the brown and gold suit, not the yellow and blue one, which I thought when he wore the yellow and blue one, oh, that's his new costume. But yet it's actually his old one. It's kind of the same for Vision. But it was cool to see the white Vision full on display in live action here. And he has a battle with Wanda's version of Vision that she created. And it was just a really cool action sequence because that white Vision is actually the real Vision who was killed and was taken in by this government operation Sword. Since he's an android, his parts are all just in many different pieces. His head separated from his body, his arms and legs. So they put him together, but he's now in control. It pretty much has no self-awareness. He's just programmed to take out Wanda and destroy that fake version of Vision. But then there is a great moment where the both Visions kind of connect, where the fake Vision is able to unlock the memory still stored in this white Vision to kind of not necessarily give him his whole personality, or for lack of a better word, soul back, but the memories of the data that he has in there, he now sees of what the previous Vision's life was. So it's not necessarily Vision's resurrected or back, but there's a part of him now where he's just not being controlled and just a mindless android. He can't think for himself a bit. So it's going to be interesting seeing what they do with Vision going forward, because that's the only Vision that's left now. Because at the end of the series finale, Wanda does release her control of everyone, and the Hex becomes no more. She releases it. So that means the Vision she created and her two kids cease to exist, and the town goes back to normal. And it wasn't necessarily a happy ending for Wanda, because obviously all the town people who were held against their will there, they're not too happy with her, and they're going to hold a grudge. And even at the end, where the character Monica Rambeau, she tells Wanda, no one's going to know what you sacrificed for them to have their lives back, being Vision and her kids. But she goes, that's not going to change how they feel about me because of what I did to them and keeping them here. So it was kind of left where, yeah, she eventually did the right thing, but it took her forever to do that. And these people in that town aren't going to forget. So she ends up leaving that town and goes into seclusion to a cabin in the mountains somewhere. And we see her powers on full display here, where she's able to create kind of just another version of herself, just to kind of, I guess if anyone's snooping around and they want to see what she's up to, there's just a normal version of Wanda walking around, when secretly she's still full-blown in her Scarlet Witch costume, kind of reading this magic book, and she's probably learning more about herself and her powers. And she finds out, she hears the voices of her kids saying Mom, help, help, making me realize is if they're somehow, since they were created and the Hex was gone, are they still somewhere out there in the multiverse? Because as I said, she's going to show up in the next Doctor Strange movie, and the Doctor Strange movie is going to be called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So they're going to go full blown multiverse here. So with her powers, she's able to tap into kind of an alternate version of her kids in another universe, or they trapped within her powers somehow. It leaves the door open for different possibilities, or maybe we haven't seen the last of her kids and just what she's capable of with her powers and her powers of creation, really, what she can do. So that was the kind of the end credit scene that we got here, because it's a Marvel TV show, and Marvel movies all have end credit scenes, so a TV show should be no different. And we got that with this one. So yeah, I really loved it. I could definitely understand how it could be not everyone's cup of tea in the first few episodes, but if you stick with it, I think you'll find a story that's really enjoyable, even if you're not too familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's something like you were mentioning, Dane. If you're not, you really have to stick with the whole series in order to realize what they're doing and what the story is. But if you're someone who is familiar with all the Marvel movies like I am, there's just a lot to enjoy about it. And it just adds to this already massive universe, and just adds layers to these characters who have been in it in a really great way. So I just really like the concept of it. They just went full blown into each era of those sitcoms, and they did each one of those eras really well. And again, the acting that Elizabeth Olsen did here was just really, really great in every episode, and just really capturing the feel for those eras. But at the same time, when she needed to go full blown into her character of Wanda that we're familiar with in the MCU, she knocked it out of the park in that regards as well. So yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed it. For Marvel's first Disney Plus series that is directly connected with the movies. I'd say they hit a home run with it, and I just can't wait for more. Because the one I'm really excited for is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is coming up next week, or as when this episode's out, it'll be premiering this tonight at midnight, Thursday the 18th. So I'm looking forward to that. So if you're enjoying the Marvel movies and wondering if they can continue what they've done so well on the TV format, I'd say they definitely did with this, with their first outing in WandaVision, and for some being really definitely different and unique that you're not going to see in any type of comic book movie or TV show before. It was just done really well. So if I had to rate it, I'd probably go ahead and give it 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. My only nitpicks were kind of some of the stuff and the little red herrings they had in there that amounted not to anything really in particular, being Quicksilver, and just the fact that the first few episodes might not be for everyone if they're not buying into the premise just yet. But overall, if you're buying into the premise, it's just a really, really great show. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And even though it doesn't look like we're going to get another season of it, because I don't see how you could with how this one wrapped up, and you can't really keep doing this format of parroting different eras of TV shows all the time to sustain a series for multiple seasons. So I think it probably is for the best if it is a one and done series. But it's not the last we're going to see these characters, because they're going to show up in either Marvel movies or more Marvel TV show. So in the end, I think it all works out for the best. So yeah, WandaVision definitely gets 2 thumbs up in my book.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair that I rate it. Especially after you explain all that stuff. So
yeah, so I don't know if you're gonna ever want to go back and watch it, Dane. But I say if you do, probably bad advice, but I would say maybe watch that Ace episode first, just to get the whole full backstory to it. I mean, I pretty much said kind of what I won't be spoiling. You won't be spoiled too much by watching it, because I spoiled enough for you here. So just to kind of get that idea of what I was talking about, it might be good to watch that 8th episode at least first.
Or just watch the 8th episode and just have that one.
And then watch the finale.
Yeah, watch the finale.
And if you like those, maybe you'll be inclined to go back and watch the episodes in between.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for our feature topic for this episode. We got a couple of news stories to touch on. One of them's kind of funny, but one of them I'm just really excited about. So the first big one is that it is officially announced that we're getting a second season of Batman: The Adventures Continue, the comic book series that is continuing the animated series universe. I kind of find it funny now that they're referring to comic books as like seasons now. I think it's becoming a new trend where I guess each year they'll get a limited run and then continue on in the next year, like a TV show would. So season 2 of Batman: The Adventures Continue is going to come May 6th as a bi-weekly series. I believe that's kind of around the same time period the first one did. But same creative team, obviously, which I'm excited about. Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, Ty Templeton on art. So we're getting more from the creative minds behind the animated series, which is what makes this comic series genuinely feel like a continuation of Batman the Animated Series. And obviously what worked so well about that first season is how it introduced Batman characters that we haven't seen before in the animated series, like Azrael and Jason Todd. And that's continuing this season. And I cannot wait, because we're going to be getting a storyline involving the Court of Owls in the Batman animated series continuity. And I cannot wait to see what Paul Dini and Alan Burnett do with the Court of Owls. It's going to be really great. I'm already excited for it. I believe they mentioned that Veronica Vreeland is going to be involved with it some way, and I think it would make total sense if she ends up being someone who is part of the Court of Owls. That would be a pretty cool twist. And yeah, I cannot wait. And then they also mentioned too that Deadman's going to be a character who's going to play a role in this first arc, and he's someone we see in some Justice League episodes. So it's not like he's making his debut in the DC animated universe, but just seeing him strictly work with Batman, we'll probably maybe see how their relationship is formed here, because Batman, they do make reference that him and Batman work together in some of those Justice League episodes. So yeah, this is going to be great. Between this and the Batman 89 comic series, these are 2 Batman comics I'll definitely be getting, and just cannot wait to read each issue moving forward. So it's cool to have 2 series coming this summer that I'm just really excited about, and just glad that the Adventures Continue line wasn't a one and done, and that more is coming. So Yeah, that is awesome. So I have my calendar marked for May 6th already. And then finally, this news I just had to bring up because it's just so ridiculous and I just can't believe it happened. I don't know if you heard about this, Dane, but Zack Snyder's Justice League, a little bit of it leaked earlier this week. And do you know how that happened?
Yeah, via Tom and Jerry, the Tom and Jerry movie. Yeah, how did that happen?
How was that possible? I mean, to me, it just had to be someone. It had to be done on purpose. Just someone who works for HBO Max wanted to get this out early for whatever reason. I don't know why. Just sneaking in for some fans. Maybe a disgruntled employee who it was his last day and he was going to put it out early. I don't know, but I don't see how this can happen accidentally. But for those lucky enough, for whatever reason, decided on a Monday to start the Tom and Jerry movie, ended up getting Justice League. At least I believe it was like an hour. I've heard different reports about like it was an hour or 2 hours worth until it actually got cut off and got removed. But a good portion of it was seen by some people. Now, I don't know if those people were hardcore comic book fans or DC fans that got to see it, but I don't know. I just can't imagine just wanting to see the Tom and Jerry movies, and all of a sudden you're getting Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's just crazy. But they said they took it off fairly quickly, but I don't know. If someone was able to see an hour's worth of it, that's a pretty good chunk of it. So it just made me, besides finding it really funny and just kind of something typical that would happen with Warner Brothers and the DC movies, because there's always something that happens. But it just made me think, oh, great. Now it's going to be harder for me to avoid spoilers for this thing. Now that a good chunk of it is out there and there's probably crappy screen grabs and video footage of it. So I managed to stay away from it so far. But I just found it really funny that happened and just being so close to its release that it had to happen. So it's some of it's out there. So be careful if you're trying to avoid spoilers like I am. And we're just less than a week now for it coming out on Thursday, the 18th. And I did get that following day off from work. So on that Thursday night, I should be watching it. Hopefully, I should probably take a nap now when I get home from work to make sure I can stay up all 4 hours to watch Justice League that Thursday night. But yeah, I'm getting more excited for it being so close. They're releasing new clips and character posters. I've seen the posters, but I'm staying away from those these new character trailers they're putting out because just like any other comic book movie I'm excited for, when it's so close to its release, I just like to stay away. Even when the runtime is 4 hours and the little snippets that they're showing, obviously there's going to be more to it than that in a movie that has a 4 hour runtime. But still, I want to be as surprised and blown away as much as possible when I've seen it for the first time. So, so by the time we get to our next episode, I'll have a full-blown review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, all 4 hours. Or maybe we'll have to break that down into 2 episodes. I don't know, depending on how much I have to say about it. So, but I am looking forward to it now that it is so close.
I wonder how much changed in that first hour that people saw or whatever.
I know. That's the thing. I'm sure there's reports saying how different it is from the theatrical, but I don't want to read them.
Yeah.
I'll find out for myself in just a few days. But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. No comic book reviews for this one. So with that, I'll just throw it to Dane for the outro, as always.
Okay, so just go over to the BatmanUniverse.net, Facebook.com/BatmanUniverse. Tim's Twitter handle is @TimG311. I'll say it 311 day. Yeah.
You've been good at doing that for me every 311 days, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. My Twitter handle is @DaneSaysBanana. Rating and reviews on iTunes. You can email the show at batfans@allpounds@gmail.com. Facebook. Nobody goes to that Facebook page anymore.
Yeah, I haven't updated that in years.
And I guess that's it. So, we'll see you guys next time.
And like we see, I was going to say, do I have to say it for you, Dave? I might as well, but you caught yourself.
Like we say at the end of every single episode.
We love each and every one of you with all of our fake sitcom hearts.
Fake sitcom hearts. We'll see you guys next time.
See you next time, everybody.
Sundies under Gotham, crime alley is a rich boy's stay with